the volcano is dead, Icelandic is thriving, carrier pigeons are racing, and more on this episode of the Reykjavik News Desk. First up on the Reykjavik News Desk, I'm in my pink hoodie rather than one of my very professional blouses because this is a holiday. Specifically, this is the Monday of the Merchants Holiday Weekend, and pretty much everything is closed as a result of this. This is a time for relaxing and taking it easy, but a lot of Icelanders also use it to go to an outdoor music festival, the most popular one being the one in the Westman Islands. Although why anyone still goes there is beyond me because it almost always ends in multiple types of assaults. Although, to be fair, less so than in the bad old days. But still, maybe cramming close to 2,000 people together on a tiny island and getting them super drunk is not always the best idea. By contrast, Reykjavik Pride begins tomorrow, and that will culminate in a march through downtown Reykjavik on Saturday. Now, this festival is actually the second biggest festival in Reykjavik. Only Independence Day gets a greater amount of attendance. Now, I'll be attending Reykjavik Pride this year, so if you happen to be in Reykjavik over the next week, if you see me, don't be shy. Come up and say hello. Apparently, the volcano got the message that it's vacation time because the volcano is dead. Long live the volcano. That's right, the eruption which began in Reykjanes on July 10th was declared probably dead on early Sunday morning. And I say probably because Earth scientists are allergic to words like always and never and definitely. It is in fact possible that the magma which is under the surface of the Earth will slosh around down there and pop out somewhere else, but it's not super likely. But it could happen. It seems kind of wild to consider that it hasn't even been a month since the eruption began. To be honest, I barely remember last year's. Yeah, it's the first one in Reykjanes that I remember most vividly, and that's because nothing hits quite like your first eruption. And then from that point on, you're just chasing that first volcano high until you have to quit cold turkey. That said, if you missed your chance to visit an Icelandic eruption site this year, fear not, because many Earth scientists believe that Reykjanes has entered its eruption era, as it were, and there's going to be more eruptions to come. So, I don't know, clear out your calendar for summer 2024 because it's very likely there'll be another volcano next year. In my previous video, I reported that President of Iceland, Guðni Th. Jóhannesson, was to attend the Wacken Open Air Metal Festival in Germany. Well, he went, and he had a great time there. But most importantly of all, Guðni Th. Jóhannesson, President of the Republic of Iceland, got in the pit. That's right, he moshed. He slammed. He went in there and did it. Other heads of state, are you even trying? What I really loved about this story, though, was him telling reporters that there is etiquette to be observed in the pit, such as if you see someone fall down, you pick them back up, and you don't go in there to straight up assault anybody. And honestly, in this day and age, when a thing called crowd killing is accepted in some circles, seeing the president of Iceland remind people of pit etiquette just warmed my Gen X heart. The president emphasized that metal is one of the few international music scenes in which Icelandic musicians feature prominently, ergo his enthusiasm for the event. And just look at him. Look how enthused he is. Next up, if you've ever been in downtown Reykjavik, you may have noticed a preponderance of signs in English, either as the primary language or as the sole language on the sign. Now, this has been something that has bothered some Icelanders, amongst them Minister of Culture, Business and Tourism, Lilja Alfreðsdóttir. Now, there's quite a bit to unpack here with regards to tourism, immigration, and the Icelandic language, so bear with me, but I think these are all very important things to consider when visiting this country. First of all, these establishments which set up signs that are entirely or primarily in English are, of course, directed at tourists. I mean, no one is going to expect that when you come to visit Iceland that you're fluent in Icelandic. In fact, even when you get fluent in Icelandic, you may have people responding to you in English, but I'll get to that later. Anyway, Lilja, like some other Icelanders, is kind of tired of seeing English on signs for business establishments. And she is going to submit a parliamentary proposal this autumn that will call for placing greater emphasis on the Icelandic language. Now, she had some choice words to say about Isavia, which is the company that operates Keflavik International Airport, because they had signs up that were in English first and then Icelandic. And this she did not like at all. Isavia has since apologized and said that this was a mistake, but she said that to see signs like this, that are English first and then Icelandic, threatens the language. So, is the Icelandic language threatened? No. No, it isn't. Not actually, factually speaking. Icelandic language is not threatened. And there are, in fact, more Icelandic speakers every year, both in terms of people born here and people who move here. That's right, as I discussed in another video, people who move to Iceland universally want to and try to learn Icelandic. So what does she mean when she says that these signs threaten the Icelandic language? Well, she went on to say that society has been placing greater demands on immigrants to learn Icelandic. The implication being that these signs, being either primarily or entirely in English, get in the way of them learning Icelandic. So with that being said, by a government minister talking about the importance of immigrants learning Icelandic, you would think that she would also be calling for more support for Icelandic language classes. That is, to make more of them, to make them more accessible, and to make them cheaper. Nope. Not a word about that has been raised, but signs using English, yeah, that she's going to write legislation about. This is, unfortunately, a common tactic in Icelandic politics. It's a sort of performative cultural patriotism to say, on the one hand, that Icelandic is a very special, fragile language that needs protection and strengthening, but not doing anything to materially support and strengthen the language, such as providing greater funding for Icelandic classes for immigrants and making them more accessible. And that's without even touching on how, even after you learn Icelandic, if you have even a trace of an accent, or if you simply don't look Icelandic, you will find people responding to you in English. That's right, even if you continue speaking Icelandic to a person, they'll keep responding to you in English, and it is absolutely surreal. It's such a common phenomenon, in fact, that in the immigrant community here in Iceland, it's called being Englished. Look, I understand the puzzlement and frustration of seeing signs that are either entirely or primarily in English. I get that. And I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that Icelandic would feature most prominently on signs for establishments, at least in establishments where Icelanders are also expected to go. But I do wince a little bit when a government minister who has otherwise not done anything to strengthen other people learning Icelandic talks about something as mundane as a sign on an establishment being a threat to the Icelandic language, especially as this is a language that has more and more speakers every year. Anyways, the Landmannalaugar controversy continues. Now, as I said in my last video, the district in which this very beautiful part of the Icelandic Highlands is based, that is Landmannalaugar, the district council wants to do a lot more developing there. In particular, they want to expand the parking lot, they want to put in a service center, they want to put on walking paths, and many more projects such as this. Now, all this is being done ostensibly for the tourists, which naturally raises the question, do the tourists even want this? Well, Jóhannes Thor Skulason, who is the managing director of the Icelandic Travel Industry Association, told reporters, no, not really. Jóhannes raised the excellent point that the tourism industry must be in balance with the natural environment, which makes sense. You're not exactly going to draw people to an outdoors location that's completely trashed. Furthermore, he said that the tourism industry just expects that there are some sites where you can't just throw massive amounts of tourists at. And that furthermore, they have not exactly been fighting for greater access to Landmannalaugar. So if the environmentalists don't want it, and not even the tourism industry want it, what are these development projects for? Why are they being built? Money, simply. These projects are going to cost money, and someone is going to get paid to build them. I don't know why everyone's so scared to point that out. And lastly, rest easy, there will be animal news. Not everyone celebrated the Merchants' holiday weekend by getting plastered at a music festival or hanging out in their hoodies indoors. The Icelandic Carrier Pigeon Society held a meet in Hveragerði, where carrier pigeon breeders and enthusiasts all got together to hang out, chat it up, and also to race pigeons. That's right, these pigeons were released to fly a distance of some 200 kilometers, and that might sound a lot. But bear in mind that these little babies can fly at speeds anywhere from 60 to 100 kilometers an hour. Furthermore, they're able to navigate by using the sun and the Earth's magnetic field, which I think, personally, is really impressive. I need somebody to draw me a map from one part of downtown to another so I can get to that place without crying. So, smart little birds. And that's all I have for you today on the Reykjavik News Desk. Be sure and like and subscribe. And just as a reminder, my next single topic video will be dropping on August 14th. And that single topic will be my hitchhiking stories, a memoir. I've hitchhiked around Iceland many, many times. I've done the entire ring road 3 times, and I've hitchhiked between different towns across the country many more times than that. And I've accumulated a lot of adventures, and the viewer poll determined that this is the next single topic video that I'm to do. Now, the viewer poll is a poll that I put on my Patreon, and patrons are able to vote and determine and dictate what single topic I go to in depth through that poll. And this was the winner. So look forward to that on August 14th. Also, let me just double check. On the Saturday that comes after that, that's August 19th at 1600 GMT, I'll be doing my next Ask Me Anything special. Now, the Ask Me Anything session is for $20 patrons, wherein we all get together in a video call. And yes, they do ask me questions about virtually anything. Myself, News Desk, Reykjavik, Iceland, what have you. But mostly it's just a time for all of us to hang out and have a good time. And I would really love to see you there. Both the viewer poll and Ask Me Anything and much more are available through my Patreon, which I've linked in the description below. Which reminds me, I want to thank Corinne Vasquez, Marianne Ward, Christopher Hunter, Marianne Moores, Kimberly McDaniel, Iceman98, Octavia Hrund-Jonsdottir, and Alan Valgamay for being patrons on the $20 level, Ian Kingsley and Laura Johnson for being patrons on the $15 level, and Melissa Pfeffer, Christine Trowbridge, Hafstein Himmelglömi Reginoson, Stephen Ellis, and Vivek Carvalho Schaffner for being patrons on the $10 level. You folks rock. That's all from me at News Desk. Be good to each other.